This particular chapter has a lot of information that I'm not going to be able to go over completely, so there's going to be a need to do some reading. And I suggest that you go through the sections that you really find interesting or pertinent to your own personality and self that might help you to see a little bit more about how you tick, how you communicate, and how you feel about yourself. So this just has a bunch of components about bringing yourself into a good space to be able to confide with people, communicate, describe, and recognize what you want in a relationship, and know what it means to be able to be okay with being alone and being with yourself. Relationships involve communication, which sometimes goes well and sometimes we have challenges. And so there are always ups and downs with everything, and it's how we often view those difficult situations are going to influence how we can move through them. When you think about a time when you were in a situation that you didn't feel that you had any control, think about what was the root cause of that. Did you have some personal angst? Did you feel that the cause of the circumstance will never change, you can't do anything about it? That would be a stable perspective. Did you think that the cause of that situation is going to influence everything in your day, your week, your life, and that you feel that there's going to be just a general outcome of horrific? That's more of a global perspective. Or did you have more of an internal response that the cause is me rather than some external cause? And that's when you think that I'm the problem. That results in helplessness. When we take the blame that this uncontrolled situation is because of me, because of something I did, that is when you start to feed that negative self-esteem, and you start to feel like, why bother? Why should I try? I just can't do anything, and that would be referred to as helplessness. This learned helplessness was studied by a couple psychologists, and they identified that this is something that really feeds itself, so to speak, is that a person can learn that they just don't have any control, and that you have this continuous negative thought that can condition a person to become helpless or always to feel like they're the victim. Maybe that's a more familiar term, that you become a victim mindset. So Seligman thought that if you can get negative thoughts to be conditioned, you can also condition positive thoughts. You can raise people up with positivity, and called this branch of psychology positive psychology. And this particular way or perspective is to allow us to see what goodness lies within us, what talents lie within us, what opportunities to grow are inside. And if we feed that a person can unlearn that helplessness and become a more growth-minded individual. And part of this is learning optimism. And Seligman emphasized that optimists are unfazed by defeat. When they're confronted by a bad situation, they perceive it as a challenge. It's a challenge, and they try harder. An optimist has not only, I don't want to say unflappable, but sees roadblocks as a challenge to overcome. These individuals that have optimism are health-wise improved, or their health, physical health, is improved by having a stronger immune system. They have a better ability to reduce an illness, the likelihood of having an illness, and they also are more likely to have a healthy relationship and are less likely to have bad things occur, which I think is pretty awesome. The immune power personality, which is part of that optimism, is or it has been described as having a number of traits. And these traits, this optimist who has a strong immune system is known to have an immune power personality. They have a number of great characteristics that help us to be more happy. So they have a connection to individuals. They tend to have high motivation, to have relationships that are based on unconditional love, not on basically obligation or a power complex. They are more likely to have, let's see here, more likely to have healthy helping, individuals that volunteer for the right reasons. They don't volunteer just to get that external accolade, but they volunteer and they help because it's important to them, and they also benefit from that. The affiliated trust is, as I mentioned, being able to have that good relationship that's based on unconditional love. And self-complexity is individuals that have this optimism and this immune power personality. They are more likely to understand themselves, investigate themselves, develop these parts of their personalities that helps them to be better to withstand stress. And that we know is a big problem for all of us at this point in time and in this point in your life. And we know that life is challenging and offers us a lot of stressful circumstances. Well, people with optimism that have these great traits, they have a better ability to withstand stressful circumstances. So it's pretty important. So we're going to go back to optimism. Learned helplessness. If you can learn how to be helpless, you can learn to be positive, you can learn to be optimistic. And one of the assessments that you're going to do is a test of optimism. And it's not a quality that is going to define you, but this optimism assessment identifies how you look at things, as whether it's all me, is it global, or is it just the circumstance? Other parts of having that positive outlook involves resilience. It's emotional resilience in particular, having good communication skills, having empathy, again, exuding optimism, and also being able to fully engage in an activity which has been defined as flow. So you lose track of time, but you're involved in an activity and all of a sudden you just get so engaged. It's not all of a sudden. You get engaged in that activity and it feels like you're just, no time is passing. And then you look and like, wow, where did those 2 hours go, right? That is flow. I can suggest all kinds of things to you, but what the basis of this is remember, you are in charge of you. And I can suggest that these are good qualities to have. But it has to start with the control, the person behind the gas pedal, behind the driver's seat. Are you interested in learning more about yourself and to examine your beliefs? Do you think that you have the capacity to do good things? Do you recognize that you have meaning and purpose in your life? Do you get excited when someone else has something positive that's going on in their life? Or are you a person that just says, well, it sure would be nice if I could? That's part of this whole perspective of relationships and connectedness, happiness, and overall wellness. How do you communicate with others? Well, for a positive relationship, positive and effective communication is necessary. How we speak, and I'm going to talk about tone. Do you listen? What kind of body language that you hold when you are listening? All is involved in the communication. So it's not just words. It's so much more. That's where it's been difficult to have hybrid classes or all online classes. You don't get to see the body, the relationship, you don't get that connection. And so it's really kind of a challenge to get to know students when you're on this kind of a platform. When you communicate, there are a number of components that make it important. Touching and relating, when somebody is going through something rough, many times you want to give someone a hug, or you want to put your hand on their shoulder. That actually is important for giving a person a sense of connectedness and allows them to start to heal. Confiding is being able to share and talk and trust and exchange important things to another person, and having that confidence is really important, knowing that you can trust the other. When you're listening, you listen and make sure that you are facing the person, that your body is close. Don't try to focus on jumping in and saying, well, when I had that. Be concerned about listening and what you might say next, not to focus on what you're going to say, but be there for that person. When you speak in communication, that your tone, the tenor, the speed in which you speak, your use of maybe the language. I know sometimes people want to act like they're smart and use big words when they don't necessarily need to, right? So that's important in the health of your relationship. When we have conflicts, we use constructive criticism, which means that you don't just tell somebody what they're doing wrong, but you give, I always like to say, you can have a complaint, but what is the solution? And conflict resolution involves good listening skills, good tone, that you're hearing a person, and that you don't just blame, but you say, when you say this, this is how I feel. So being constructive rather than blame is important. And also always treat someone with the respect that they need. Or I should say the respect that they deserve. So when you think about a conversation that you've had in the last week that was maybe a little uncomfortable, you can reflect a little bit and say, maybe I jumped in too fast, or I didn't give that person time to talk. I didn't really hear what they were saying. They kept on saying, you're not listening, you're not listening. So the thought is that when you reflect on those conversations, it takes a little bit of time to think about how can I do better next time. And that's really what we want to do. You're always communicating by how you present yourself. So presenting yourself doesn't mean that you're just giving somebody what you think they want, but that you are being true to yourself, that you are being honest, that you can have a conversation, that you represent yourself with integrity. I guess that's about the key way to say it. And as you start to develop your own sense of self, that you don't need to have that comparison of you can listen to people and not feel that you've got to bring it always back to yourself, and that just being outside, relating to where you are, that can help a person to be calm, to be more together, have a better mood and better mental health. When you have looking at relationships, many times there's the relationship research is more on what makes a marriage last 50 years, what makes a relationship last 60 years, what was the basis of having the friendship from high school and you're now 55 years old, what kept that going. What we do know is that long relationships do have many benefits. And as you look at this list, you can see the overall the physical, emotional, mental benefits that occur with having someone solid in your life for a long period of time. Although we know this to be true of individuals that have been married for a long period of time, it's suggested, the author of Encyclopedia of Human Relationships, Dr. Rice, really believes that any close relationship with a partner, a friend, a parent can also result in these benefits. So it's important to think about keeping, those good. It takes effort to keep those long-term relationships going, and there might be ups, there might be downs, but there truly is a wellness benefit to having stability and friendship and relationship for a good solid one. It takes a while to really get to know a person. Long-term relationships do take work. They take work, commitment, and nurturing. And you need to be a independent person, but you also want to have a connection and communicate and have that reach out with individuals that you can count on that person. So talking to somebody once every 5 years is probably not going to have be an indication of a long-term relationship. But when you have someone that you talk to pretty regularly, that you might have coffee with, or that you spend some time with, a lot of Greek organizations will stay in close contact with, or individuals that are in Greek organizations, societies, they tend to stay involved, and those relationships can become lifelong relationships, and those are part of are going to be resulting in some good components for your wellness. Intimacy in a relationship is not just about having sex. It means that you have an ability to trust, communicate, confide, know that you've got that person on your side, and that you've got that person's got your back. When you do look at it as far as sexual intimacy, there's passion and compassion. So the passion is that sexual attraction, but the compassion has to do with a concern for another person. So sexual intimacy is not just having sex, it also involves that affection and concern for another person. So intimacy, there are many, many kinds. It's just not having sex. When we are feeling lonely, it really is the signal that we need to look for some interaction with someone. And it is a signal to reach out, talk, communicate, have coffee, have lunch. Now that we can get out and about, being lonely for a long period of time really has some negative impact on your wellness. And so having a good bond of friends, it's not how many friends you have, but it's the quality of the friendships that you have. Relationships should have a healthy place, should be a healthy place for you. The only person that you can change is yourself. People can't make you feel badly. You can choose who you spend time with. Spend time with individuals that are going to lift you up, not individuals that are going to make you feel uncomfortable, place blame, make you behave in a certain way that you don't like about yourself. Only we can be in charge of our happiness in our relationships. And sometimes you just have to move forward. The self-reflection of your long-term relationships, what can you do to improve it? Can you reach out a little bit more? One of the gratitude journals that you're going to do is to reach out to someone and thank them for something that they've done for you. And you'll be surprised how you feel when you respond to that. So finally, it is possible to become positive, and we don't have to be helpless. We want to develop our relationships so we have happiness, good quality of life, we have passion in our life, joy. Focus on building relationships with individuals that lift you up, that have a quality of confidence, trust, and do your best to discover and evaluate yourself about how you can be involved in other people's lives to do good things.